Welcome back to our podcast series on crisis communication and reputation management. In the last episode, we laid the groundwork on what crisis communication is all about. Today, we're going to dive into the different types of crises organizations face and how each one demands a tailored communication approach.
That's right, Yogesh. Not all crises are created equal. A product recall is very different from a data breach or a leadership scandal. But they all share one thing in common. If handled poorly, they can severely damage an organization's reputation.
Exactly. So let's start by grouping crises into broad categories. The most common ones we see are operational crises, technological crises, financial crises, personnel crises, reputational crises, and natural or external disasters. Would you agree with that framework?
Absolutely. And under each of those are subtypes. For example, within reputational crises, you could have social media backlash, misinformation campaigns, or accusations of unethical behavior.
Let's begin with product and service-related crises. These are operational in nature, like a faulty product, a contaminated food item, or a service outage. Think about automotive recalls or payment platforms going down during peak hours.
Right. The challenge here is balancing speed with accuracy. You want to notify your users immediately, but you also need to avoid misinformation or panic.
And these types of crises often require coordination with regulators, so communication has to be very measured and legally sound.
Moving on, let's talk about technological crises. These include things like data breaches, hacking, and IT infrastructure failures. In these cases, trust is on the line, especially when customer data is involved.
I always say in tech crises, transparency beats silence. If users find out through a leak that their data was compromised, the reputational damage is far worse than if you had just come forward.
Couldn't agree more. In fact, companies like Apple and Google have public-facing security blogs for this exact reason, owning the narrative early.
Next, we've got financial crises. These might be insolvency issues, accounting scandals, or sudden losses. Here, investors, employees, and regulators all expect immediate and clear updates.
And the fear factor is high. If people believe the company is going under, mass panic can set in, impacting stock prices, employee morale, and customer confidence.
You remember the collapse of Enron? That was a financial and reputational crisis all in one. And it showed how internal fraud can become global news overnight.
Speaking of reputational harm, let's move into leadership or personnel crises. These often revolve around misconduct, sexual harassment, unethical leadership decisions, or discriminatory behavior.
These are the most emotionally charged crises, in my opinion. The public wants accountability, and how fast you act and how genuinely matters more than ever.
A poor response here isn't just seen as tone deaf. It can be career-ending for leaders and brand-defining for companies.
Absolutely. I'd also add that sometimes the leader isn't the one directly involved, but their silence or inaction becomes the crisis.
Yes, it's not always what you did, it's what you didn't do in response.
Then we have natural disasters or external threats, earthquakes, pandemics, political unrest. These often fall outside a company's control, but still demand a communication strategy.
COVID-19 is the perfect example. Some companies went silent for weeks. Others stepped up, updated stakeholders regularly, and became beacons of trust.
And the takeaway there is, even when the crisis isn't your fault, the response is your responsibility.
That's a powerful line, Yogesh. And now, perhaps the most modern type of crisis, social media crises. A customer complaint going viral, a poorly worded tweet, or even an old video resurfacing.
Social media has democratized outrage. Anyone with a phone can spark a global backlash.
Which is why social listening tools and a fast-reacting digital comms team are essential today. Waiting 24 hours to respond just won't cut it.
Agreed. Now, let's make this real for our listeners. How about we walk through two brief case studies, one well-handled and one poorly managed?
Let's do it. I'll start with the Tylenol crisis of 1982. When Johnson & Johnson found out that someone had tampered with Tylenol bottles, they issued a nationwide recall, halted all production, and communicated directly with the public. It cost them $100 million, but they rebuilt trust.
Classic case study. Now contrast that with the United Airlines incident in 2017, where a passenger was forcibly dragged off an overbooked flight. Their initial response blamed the passenger and used corporate jargon like reaccommodate. It backfired horribly.
Yes, and it took them multiple press releases to course correct. That delay and lack of empathy added fuel to the fire.
So, what's the lesson here?
Know the type of crisis you're dealing with, tailor your message accordingly, and always lead with humanity.
Let's summarize the types of crises before we wrap up.
Sure. We covered product and service-related crises, technological or data crises, financial or accounting crises, personnel or leadership misconduct, reputational crises, especially on social media, natural or external disasters.
And we stress that not all crises are created equal, but they all demand fast, empathetic, and strategic communication.
In our next episode, we'll go deep into how to build a crisis communication plan, step by step.
Thank you, Lily, and to our listeners. And always remember, knowing the kind of storm you're facing is the first step to surviving it. If you found this episode of Corporate Communication useful, don't forget to join us, leadershipacademy.tagbizsutra.com. Do share it with your friends and colleagues, and leave your review. Until next time, corporate communication is a leadership function. It defines how people think, feel, and act. It deserves intention.